Hey everybody, Lisa here with the Mars Hill Art Center, and I am not teaching you how to make a wreath today, but what I am going to teach you is how to adorn it with some really fun things like these that you would find at Hobby Lobby, Joann Fabric, places like that. But what you might not know is that you can take this one sprig, so these are sold by the piece like this, and you can get more bang for your buck out of just one piece. And so I want to show you how to do that. And I have a wreath here that already has some beautiful things on it. I bought it like this. This is a fresh wreath. But I'm going to take these things off. These are on here with wire. So I'm just going to cut the wire and take them off because I want to add my own flair. I want to add my own color. And so yeah, these are just on with floral wire. And you will want to cut those off. And okay, so I'm going to spare you watching me cut all of these off. But that gives you the start. So I'm going to do that. But what I want to show you now, and then I'll show you the finished product after. I want to show you how to separate these into more than one piece. So I'm going to come up close. So see how these are taped off with brown floral tape? You can separate this one piece into multiple pieces. And usually I just like to take it and pull. Let's see if this works. Yep. And then you see how it's wired together? So all these little pieces, so that's one. And we'll probably get 3 out of this. 2, and there's the wire for that one. And then this one is 3, and then we would cut this off. Now, if you really wanted to make it go a lot further, you could use your wire cutters and cut these little edges off too and use them just as singles. But I'm not going to show you that. I'm just going to tell you that. So there's that one. And then this guy, the magnolia leaves, the gold magnolia leaves, are in this stem the same exact way. So actually I said magnolia leaves, this is a poinsettia. So to fluff the poinsettia, if you wanted to use it like it is, you would just do this. This has wire in it, so you would fluff it out and spread the petals and make it look like a beautiful poinsettia. But if you want to get more bang for your buck, same thing. So look at the back. These are all on wires. These will probably be harder to get out. So you would just pull against that tape. Usually just takes one to get it started. Okay, come on, guy. Let me give it a little bit of help. So I'm going to cut some of this brown tape. So I'm just kind of cutting along the stem there, and these are little kid scissors so they don't have a pointed end, which would help. So, okay, so now you can see there's that brown wire in there. I'm going to wiggle, and it's starting to come out. Actually, another trick to get it going is to take true wire cutters and cut down here. There we go, cut that off. That gets that tape separated. And then you could just peel this up to expose all of those wires. Okay, I'm not gonna take the time to do that now, but I wanna get at least one of these out, so. There we go. So you can see it has the wire at the bottom too. So I could separate this whole thing and get multiple pieces out of it. And then the last one I'm gonna show you is the berries. Same concept. It's all taped in this brown floral tape. These are gonna be a lot easier. You just peel them off like so. And so this one I'm gonna be able to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 7 out of it, like so. So that's gonna give you a lot more to decorate with. And when you start putting these in with these little pieces of wire, you're just gonna stick it in. And if you can get the wire to come through to the back, then you just bend the wire over and it'll stay put. Okay, so you see I have a lot of things that are gonna be in play in a class for a client, and I'm gonna help them move through decorating a wreath that is from scratch. It's just greens. But we'll have a choice of ribbon, we'll have a choice of adornments, and I'll show them all these little tricks. And stay tuned, I'm gonna show you how to make a really beautiful bow next. Hey everybody, Lisa back here to show you how to make a beautiful bow. And there are a lot of contraptions you can use. There are these really cool old things our grandmothers used to use where you just wrap in a figure 8 your ribbon and then grab it in the center, lift it off and tie it off, which is really easy. You can also do something really cool. You can take a couple of chopsticks onto your table and leave the length off the edge of the table. Take them about as wide as you want your bow to be, and then do the figure 8 in there. There are a lot of videos out online that you can look up that show you how to do that. I'm gonna show you how to do it just with your hands, little measuring, and that's it. So I want my bow to have a lot of loops. And so I have measured out 144 inches for this one, and I've gone ahead and cut it. It's easier than using the spool and dragging it out, so I just measured it all out and cut it. So I have this long ribbon, but what I want to do is make it into equal loops. And so I have my yardstick here. I'm going to measure it out to 12 inches. And then because this ribbon is single-sided, I am going to make a continuous oval of 12 inches. So we go 12 here, I flip it over to 12, and then I'm going to loop it under. I'm not twisting it or anything. I am keeping all of the pretty side on the outside, and then loop that one over. And so we've got a good 12 inches going here. And so if you're not on the roll and it starts to curl, you've already cut it, it'll stay nice and straight. So now I'm just gonna loop it over itself. And because I've already measured it, I know how many loops I'm going to get. And we're not worried about the tail. They're all 12-inch sections. All right. So there you go. This is what you have. Now I'm gonna fold this in half. And I see that one little tail is a little bit long, but that's okay, we'll address that in a little bit. Okay, so folded it in half. Here's my middle. Now I want to scrunch that up. You don't have to scrunch them one at a time, but you might wanna do like a couple at a time. Otherwise it's gonna be really thick under that wire or zip tie that you're gonna use. So we're just gonna squeeze that together. And I like using zip ties because they can get a lot tighter. But for today's video, I'm using wire. And so floral wire, I'm gonna just half that over the middle, and then I'm gonna try to twist it as tight as possible, just like a bread tie. And don't go too crazy because we're gonna add something to the back of this too. So now you have a really good start, and you just wanna start separating all of these loops. And now you can see why we layered it the way we did, because all of the good side, all of the pretty side is showing. Okay, so we're just separating it first. And you'll see you do have a couple of tails in there, but that's okay. Separate all these hoops out, or loops out. And try to pull at the center where you have that wire. And this is where you're just gonna be adjusting, okay? So, all right, so we've gotten a little bit of it out. We don't wanna do a full-blown fluff at this moment because we want to put something on the center and we also want to give it a tail. So you do have a couple of little tails, but I find it's just easier to add a long tail afterwards. So I'm going to cut this down, and it's okay if it's still in there. And then I'm going to take I've cut a little short piece. It's about 8 or 9 inches long, and I'm going to make a little circle out of it, overlapping enough that when we run some wire through here, it's gonna grab a hold and not pull it out. So this is gonna be our center. And you're gonna put that on with the holes at the top and the bottom, right across the center of your bow. Now you're gonna take, if you used wire, take one of those pieces of wire and run it back through. If you use zip ties, get another zip tie and run it through. And don't twist it off on the back yet, because now we're gonna add our tail, and I've cut a tail about the length that I want it, so it's gonna hang about like that. So I'm gonna put it on the back and just squeeze it in the center, and then twist off that wire or tighten up that zip tie. And then if you have wire, you can leave the length and use it to put over your wreath or over you know, whatever, your door, wherever you're gonna put this bow. If you have a zip tie, you're gonna have to wire, you know, put a little bit of wire in the back to attach it to something. But so that gives us this nice little center. Now you wanna go crazy, fluffing. And the beauty of wired ribbon is that it is very forgiving, number one. Number two, it allows you to really move it around to where you want it. So you're pulling hard on all of these loops. You may even want to pull some up to the center and make it a little more rounded, or if you want it to still have kind of that bow tie shape, you can leave them out to the side. I'm just pulling on it like crazy until I get it just right. And here was another tail that was a shorty when we started. I'm gonna go ahead and cut that off a little bit too, so it's just hanging out in the back. And then there we go. We have a nice, pretty bow that we can attach to our wreath. I'm gonna go ahead and put this on just so you can get an idea of what it looks like. You can also layer multiple types of ribbon in this, so you can have more loops, you can have more color, you could add a solid with this, you could add some glittery with this, so there you go. There's your beautiful bow. You can make them as big or as small as you want, and yeah, hopefully this helps you make a beautiful wreath for the holidays. Okay, now I'm going to show you what it looks like to have two different ribbons in the same big bow. So I'm using a non-wired red and then a wired plaid. And this one's going to be a little bit smaller. So I'm measuring out 12 inches. And also I have pre-cut my little center piece that I'm going to use, and it's about 4 or 5 inches long. And I've also pre-cut my tail. I didn't include the chiffon in the tail. You could actually include it. You could include a bunch of other colors in the tail if you want to, just to make it a little more fancy, but I'm gonna go with just the added chiffon in the bow itself. And so I have it layered on top of the plaid, measuring it out to that 12 inches, and I'm gonna do the same thing I did in the other one and just loop it onto itself. It gets a little more tricky when you have more than one type of ribbon. And you could go gangbusters and do even, 3 or 4 different kinds of ribbon if you wanted to. Layering adds a lot of texture and color. And so we're going around and around And this is exactly what we did with the big white nutcracker ribbon. It's just wrapping it around itself, And now this plaid has gold on the other side, so it wouldn't matter if that showed, or if I wanted it to show here, I could twist it. That would be in the center, and then I could go a few around with the gold so that the gold shows, but that's something you would do if you wanted to use two-sided and get the benefit of both colors in your bow. Again, if you were to do that, you would just twist it every other one to show the opposite side. All right, so here we are. And now we're gonna half it again so that we can make sure we get in the middle, our little bunny ears. So here's the middle. And we're gonna scrunch that up. And actually my tail, I needed to stop my tail right here because that one's not gonna catch. So trim that off. All right, so now we're gonna scrunch this up nice and tight in the middle. Get that wire, wrap it around nice and tight, or if you're using a zip tie, get it nice and tight. And then let's go ahead and start separating these. And you can see what it looks like with that extra red in there. I think it adds some really cool texture. All right, we're not gonna fluff it all out just yet because we wanna add our tail and we wanna add our center. Okay, so I'm gonna take my little centerpiece and I'm gonna make a loop out of it. And remember, you want the holes to be on the top and the bottom. And actually I made that a little too long. So let's measure just to be sure. Let's say it should be 4 inches. Cut that point off. Okay, there we go. So make our little loop. Put that on the top. Put my wire, and it just needs to be one piece of wire. You don't have to wrap both. Through that hole, pull it, and then pull it around to the back. Tighten that really tight. Again, if you're using zip ties, you would use a second zip tie for that. That gives us our little center. And then I also want to go ahead and add my tail. And I like asymmetry, so I don't care if it's in the middle or not. I like one side a little bit longer than the other. And then, now if you use a zip tie, you might try to get the little front piece and the little back piece on at the same time and use one zip tie. All right, so now we're gonna start fluffing this thing out. We wanna really bend up the ribbon that has the wire in it. And you'll probably wanna get most of that done first, then we'll figure out where the little chiffon pieces need to go. Remember, pull at the center. You wanna pull some of these up to the front. Fluff, scrunch, bend. I don't know if y'all can really see what I'm doing. I'm just really pulling and fluffing. And try to remember to pull from that center where the wire is. That's gonna give it a little more poofiness in the very front, so it doesn't look so much like a real bow tie. And then on your tails, Something I didn't mention in the first video, you can fluff these, scrunch these as well so that they hang. And then decide if you want just an angle cut or if you want the fishtail cut. So the fishtail cut would be, and I'm gonna show you on this because it's wider, fold it in half at the very end and then cut from the middle out to the tip. Oops, from the middle out to the tip. And then it gives you that little fishtail. So you can do either one. So here is this little bow. I'll get a good picture of it here in a second, but just gives you an idea of what some extra layers of the chiffon would do. I'm gonna pull that out so you can see that. Just to give it a little more texture. Okay, if you choose a few pine cones to put on your wreath, this wire, or if you have pipe cleaners, wire like this is the easiest to use instead of something that's on a coil. You can basically take this and just kind of half it, but you're gonna wedge it in under maybe, 2 or 3 rows from the bottom and just kind of wedge it in there. And then twist it on one side. And then that's what you're gonna use to stick through the wreath and wire it on. Okay, I showed you how to wire the pine cone, but then also this, when you take apart the poinsettia flower and you have all of these leaves, you just end up with one little bit of wire at the end. And so I've provided some extra longer pieces of wire so you can add to that to get it into your wreath, and you poke it through all the greenery, pull it through the back, and then wire it on. But so I just want to show you how I recommend doing this. Just poke it through, and that's easier said than done, right? Poke it through the front, and then twist it off on the back, and then just twist this around, and then that gives you more wire to work through. So you can stick that in your wreath, pull it through, and cut off the excess.